Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Hello there, I'm Casualty Chris.
This is Father Malone.
This is a podcast about tales from the crypt called Chronicles from the Crypt. Twice a month look at the HBO horror anthology series Tales from the Crypt that aired from 1989 to 1996.
On each of our podcasts, we do 2 episodes of the television series, and in between, along the way, between seasons, we do tangentially related tales, ephemera. On occasion, we do movies that actually have nothing to do with it. They're just anthologies. But recently we did Demon Knight, which is a Tales from the Crypt movie, and I'm sure next season we're going to do the dreaded Bordello of Blood. But here we are, Season 5, Episodes 7 and 8.
And those episodes are House of Horror and Well-Cooked Hams.
Freight Court is now in session. Will the defendant please approach the bench? You stand accused of watching too much Tales from the Crypt. Do you understand the charge? Neither do I, but I'll tell you this. If convicted, you'll receive a stiff sentence. You may even do a little horrid time. How do you bleed? All right then, let the trial begin. Our first piece of evidence is a tale about a couple of college boys who are about to undergo a little trial in terror of their own, in a writ of habeas corpus I call House of Horror.
So House of Horror aired October 27th, 1993. It is the show's Halloween episode for 1993. It is written and directed by Bob Gale, one half of the writing duo that wrote Back to the Future. Stars a whole mess of folks, but the ones worth mentioning: Jason London, Will Wheaton, because God hates us, Meredith Salinger, and our good friend, Mr. Kevin Dillon.
Ah, yes.
And it's about a bunch of frat guys who go and haze some upcoming pledges by taking them to a haunted house and putting them through the paces. Unbeknownst to them, they're the ones being put through the paces.
Dun, dun,
it's a goofy-ass episode. It's goofy. It is goofy.
It is goofy, and now both of the episodes we're talking about today, are based on the actual Tales from the Crypt comic book. In the case of House of Horror, we're talking about Tales from the Crypt number 21, written by Al Feldstein, and drawn by the amazing Harvey Kurtzman, who did one other story that we've had an episode based on, also was a haunted house feature. Harvey Kurtzman eventually went on to create Mad Magazine, among other things. Little Annie Fanny in Playboy, the pages of Playboy in the 70s and 80s. Harvey Kurtzman is a massive talent. If you go back, I rarely do this, but I do encourage you to go look at the artwork for this particular comic, because Harvey Kurtzman is an amazing artist. And with the comic, look, it's essentially the same thing. It is a bunch of frat boys who are going to be hazed by sending them to a haunted house where the elders of the fraternity have already planted horror items and are attempting to scare these guys. But the episode itself does follow the structure, which is each of the characters being sent into the house have to get to the 3rd floor and shine a flashlight out the window. And in the comic, each of the characters get to the 2nd floor, shine the flashlight, and then disappear. And then the Kevin Dillon character, the sort of leader of the fraternity, has to go in to find out what's going on. In the comic, it ends with the rest of the fraternity going in to find him, and when they do, his hair has gone white and he's completely insane, and all the frat boys that he sent in, the pledges that he sent in initially, are completely, they've disappeared, and we'll never know what happened in the house that night. Bob Gale gave us an actual concrete ending, which I'm not mad at. I don't think it's handled as well.
I thought this episode's fun.
Yeah, it's real good. Like, all the performances are good. The plotting is good. The dialogue's interesting. Like, I'm not mad at this one at all. It is sort of a traditional haunted house episode. A couple of missteps here and there. The Michael DeLuise character is pretty goddamn annoying. The one controlling the effects from the outside.
Isn't Michael DeLuise just kind of in general as an actor kind of fucking annoying?
Yeah, a little bit. Like he's no Peter DeLuise, who is always empathetic and interesting as an actor.
I just remember Michael DeLuise as the guy who's in the GIF that everybody uses from Encino Man, which is kind of like the guy shaking his head, a GIF from Encino Man.
Yeah.
Like him like coming into frame in front of Megan Ward as Sean Astin is waving at her. Like that's what I think of when I think of Michael DeLuise, is just his asshole character from Encino Man, the Pauly Shore American cinema classic.
That is his claim to fame.
But yeah, he's obnoxious. Kevin Dillon plays the dickhead so well, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it's weird. Kevin Dillon can be that dickhead, or he can be completely lovable, like a interesting actor. I think in some ways much more interesting than his brother, who is far more famous, or at least was when I was growing up.
I think his brother's still famous, right? I mean, I don't know what for, though.
Well, I mean,
He played Bukowski in that one movie, Women.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people probably would know him from There's Something About Mary because of those giant teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, look, man, when I was growing up, we had him in Rumblefish and The Outsiders and My Bodyguard, and probably the best thing he was in, which was Drugstore Cowboy, Gus Van Sant's film from around 1990 or so. He's a real good actor, but, Kevin Dillon can do it, man. Like, I like him here. Like, he was the lead in a bunch of good things, like they did a remake of The Blob around 88, which he's saddled with the horrible mullet, but he manages to act his way out from under it, and he's good as a total prick here. Really appreciate the performance.
Yeah, it's a fun episode. I mean, there's not much to it. Really not. I think the twist at the end is fun, that there's like a double twist.
Yeah, where, they've got the sorority sisters who have come to cheer on these pledges, and it turns out that they're the ones. Are they vampires, I guess? I mean, they kind of...
They're ghouls, dude. They're ghouls.
They're ghouls.
They're ghouls,
oh, man.
100%.
Back to the ghoul well.
Yeah. Well, I also like that, like, they tell the story about the kid, DeWitt, and then they claim that that's not a real story, and then it turns out that it is a real story. Like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make, like, it makes no sense in the context of the episode. They literally say this wasn't a real thing, and then they change their mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe he was a real person, but they just made up the story about him disappearing?
Probably.
Maybe that's what they were getting at? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think they had built up a legend around a character, not knowing how it actually occurred, and then were given how it actually occurred when the sorority sisters reveal themselves in the end. This reminded me a lot of there was an anthology movie about, I don't know, like 8-10 years ago called Trick or Treat.
Yes.
Where the sort of werewolf/vampire episode where we think these girls are victims and they end up being the aggressors.
So the Michael Dougherty film.
Michael Dougherty,
not a fan of me.
Oh, he loves you
personally.
He loves you. That's why he blocked you.
I mean, no, he didn't block me. I blocked him.
Oh, okay.
He put me on a list on Twitter of, quote, mean people, because I said that his use of religious allegory in the most recent Godzilla movie, which you shouldn't watch because it's not good, was ham-fisted and not at all overt, or not at all as creative as he thought it was.
Certainly not subtle, no.
No, not subtle. I mean, yeah, not subtle in the slightest, and apparently he can't take criticism. That's fine. It's not like I said your movie's shit. I merely just said I thought it was ham-fisted and way too overt to be, clever, and I guess he didn't like it. That's fine. And it's fine. I don't like Trick or Treat or Krampus, because neither one of those movies are very good.
No, they're not good at all. Like it
especially Krampus. Good God in heaven, that movie's bad.
Real bad. There are aspects of Trick or Treat I like. I like that an anthology movie where each of the individual stories sort of play back into one another. Like, I like that idea, but each of the stories as presented are boring as fuck.
I don't know what someone saw in those two films to give someone a big budget Godzilla film, but it's fine. Those Godzilla films are awful anyways.
They're real bad, man. Even that Skull Island movie. What was that, Kong?
I liked Kong Skull Island.
I liked
it because it actually had some style to it. It wasn't just gray and boring.
No, I mean, I like the sort of setting, and I like that they used Vietnam as a backdrop for a modern horror giant monster picture. But I don't think it hangs together. I think Shea Wiggum's character in that particular movie is really good, and I like the idea that there was a American soldier from World War II who's been puttering around that island ever since. Like there are things.
John C. Reilly.
Yeah, there are things to like about that film, but it doesn't hang together. It certainly hangs together a lot better than the Godzilla films on their own.
Well, I think that's the big takeaway is like those Godzilla movies are The first one is bad for its own reasons, and the second one is bad for other reasons.
Yeah.
They made inverse problems. Like the first one is you don't see enough Godzilla, and the second one is you see enough Godzilla, but it's just boring and who cares? I like big monsters and watching them fight. Wow. Well, if that's all you want, then you got it, I guess.
Yeah, man. Like,
boy, I'd like
enjoy.
To plot. I mean, that's Pacific Rim was, and that movie's not very good.
Oof, I hate that movie.
Right? Okay, good. I must be taking crazy pills thinking people like that movie.
Well, people do like that movie. People like these Godzilla movies too. People love that Trick or Treat movie, and I'm just like, really? It's good enough for you? Okay, enjoy it. But
yeah,
there are so many better anthologies.
But this episode is good enough. This episode's good enough for me.
For me too. And I'm not the biggest Bob Gale fan. He seems like a real dick. But he's the one who's been shouting down Crispin Glover for the past 30 years over his involvement with the Back to the Future movies, which is unfortunate. And he seemed...
Well, when you recast someone and have them upside down so that you can hide the fact that he wouldn't return for the movie, no shit, nobody likes you, dude.
Well, and, plus they used actual footage from the first movie without his permission, and they used the
Exactly.
They used the prosthetics from his face to redress another actor, thus trying to convince us that was
really
Crispin Glover.
Up.
Like, that's a weird story.
It's really screwed up.
But in Bob Gale, the thing was there was like a gag order on the eventual ruling because they ruled in favor of Crispin Glover, and Bob Gale has been breaking that ever since, just trying to paint Crispin Glover as a lunatic who was bad news and was trouble from the get-go, and evidently that's not the case.
We know who the problem is. Bob Gale.
Bob Gale is the problem, man.
Exactly. 100%.
I like a lot of the early Zemeckis Gale scripts. You and I did a podcast about 1941, which those guys wrote with a rewrite by John Milius. I like Used Cars, a movie they did. I Want to Hold Your Hand is really good. I think that script for the original Back to the Future is as solid as fuck. I think the other movies are to a lesser degree enjoyable, and I think those were written by Bob Gale on his own. And I think this is the last gasp of him that I've heard of anything, honestly. Probably was thrown as a bone to him because Bob Zemeckis is one of the executive producers of this series. Having said all of that, and as detestable as a human being as he seems, this episode is probably a watch for me.
I would agree 100%. It's fun, it's dumb, it has a nice twist, like double twist with a fake out, and the villain of the episode gets what's coming to them, and the hero singular survives. Only one of them. Only one of the pledges survived.
Yeah.
Clearly. But I liked it. Otherwise, I think it's perfectly adequate.
Yeah, it's fine.
Which, for this show, is sometimes more than enough.
It's sometimes a home run.
Speaking of that, let's move on to the next episode, Well-Cooked Hams.
Quelle heure est-il?
Killer est-il?
Où est la fenêtre?
Boo est la fenêtre. Bonsoir, kiddies. I was just in the middle of my French lesson. Your pal, the Crypt Keeper, has decided to see Le Monde. Imagine me, in gay scary, sitting in a nice little cafe on the Rot Bank, sipping a glass of Chablis while I write ghost cards home to all my fiends. Or I could stay home and tell you tonight's tale. It concerns an ambitious young magician who wants to expand his horizons, too, in a tasteless trick called Well-Cooked Ham.
So this episode aired November 3rd, 1993, is directed by Elliot Silverstein, written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who we will talk about. We have to.
Yeah, kind of.
And and it stars Martin Sheen playing multiple roles, Billy Zane in an actual episode of the show, and Miriam
Dabo.
Miriam Dabo. And it...
not to be confused with Olivia Dabo, who is a better actress and much more attractive. Miriam Dabo she was in, I think, The Living Daylights, the Timothy Dalton James Bond film.
Yeah, she sure was. That's a good movie, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're both on record as enjoying anything Timothy Dalton was in, particularly his take on James Bond.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, still my favorite James Bond without a doubt. But we do need to talk about what this episode is about. This episode is about two warring magicians who are trying, or one, I guess not two warring magicians. I guess it's one magician who is just killing everyone else, killing all the other magicians to to steal their tricks. It's not really we're not really given an idea why, just because he can, I guess.
Yeah, because he's sick of being marginalized and not as famous as the other magicians, so he keeps killing them and stealing their act, but he himself is such a poor magician that he can never actually pull their tricks off, which begs the question, why is he still in business when he's messing up every time he performs? And now, as I mentioned earlier, the last episode is based on Tales from the Crypt comic book. This is also based on Tales from the Crypt comic. This is issue number 27 of Tales from the Crypt. In this case, written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, the shepherds of the entire EC comics, and drawn by the inimitable Jack Davis. Now, the comic is not wildly different, but different enough that it does bear mentioning. Here we have two American actors, potentially stage producers, who have gone to Paris and witnessed and I'm going to butcher the French word here, the Grand Guignol, which is the
Grand Guignol, yeah.
Guignol, yeah, the French tradition of a stage play where incredibly violent acts are performed in front of the audience's eyes. People are beheaded and limbs are chopped off and eyeballs are plucked out, and they see the audience reaction. They know how popular it is, and gauging what America was like in the 1950s, they figure this is the perfect opportunity to take this French tradition and bring it to the New York stage, where they think it's going to be wildly popular. They approach the leader of the Parisian theater group, who tells them that he cannot partner up with them because all of the tricks that they're seeing on stage are such a well-kept secret that he couldn't possibly reveal it to anyone. Even the actors on stage don't know what is going on. So they kill him, they steal his book that tells how to do all of the tricks. They go back to America, they put it on stage, it's very popular, and end up, they are performers, as I said, so they're performing a sketch or a blackout on stage where acid is involved. The characters throw acid on each other, and it's real acid, which is why they're well-cooked hams, and both die. And then we see in the audience that the corpse of the French producer has made his way to New York and has switched their fake acid with real acid. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it does reinforce what the title is, and I think could have been more interesting than what we got. Warring Magicians is a boring and uninteresting take on theatrical life, as far as I'm concerned. I would have preferred...
Looking at you, Chris Nolan in The Prestige.
Yeah, man. It's like, if we get it, like, interesting, I guess. The Illusionist with Ed Norton, that was a little bit better, I think, than The Prestige. What we've got here is Andrew Kevin Walker freely adapting that story, and it's not like it's a step down script-wise. The problem for me with the episode is it's clearly Martin Sheen in every guise that we get him.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
no.
Oh, stop it.
All those people are just Martin Sheen in really bad makeup or in a fake beard?
It's
what?
Shocking, isn't it?
And then at the end he somehow one-ups all of those characters by looking even more ridiculous. Yeah, he goes from He goes from Eastern European magician to American filmographer to then Merlin? ? It's weird. But it is that problem of trying to hide the main actor in different makeup and expecting that the main character, the main character is expected to be dumb, right?
Does not work.
He has to be so stupid that he doesn't recognize him.
He is kind of an idiot, but we're smarter than that lead character, so why are we supposed to go along with him? It doesn't make any sense.
It's just not anything interesting. Yeah, he's hamming it up big time, but it's just not interesting.
He is the well-cooked ham of the title here in this particular episode. Because, Chris, I'm on record as saying, well, Billy Zane as a performer, just not necessarily as a performer, but something about that guy just really irks me. But I think his performance here is solid.
He's a dick. Like, he plays a dick well.
Yeah, and he plays an inept dick really well. Like, this character is not good at what he's doing, and that's interesting and fun to watch. The problem is, as soon as the Martin Sheen character shows up, it's like, okay, well, there's Martin Sheen, and then another character shows up, like, there's Martin Sheen again, and then when he finally reveals himself as this third character, I'm like, okay, well, I gave up two characters ago, so what is the twist here? Like, talk about telegraphing something.
And let's talk about Andrew Kevin Walker for a second, because this is the only time we're going to get a chance to talk about him. He is the gentleman who wrote Seven.
Yep.
He also wrote 8mm.
Mm-hmm. Sleepy Hollow.
8mm is not good. Yeah, 8mm is not good, but that's not his fault
No.
that it's not good. That script got taken out back to the woodshed and summarily beaten to death. The original script for that movie is very good.
Yeah, he did an uncredited pass on Fight Club. He added one of my favorite lines in the entire movie, which is Ed Norton's character, the narrator, Jack, says, "If I did have a tumor, I would name it Marla," which is a fantastic line. He actually wrote an unproduced script called Red, White, Black, and Blue, which is about heroin smuggling in the 1970s during the bicentennial, which I really liked when I read, and I'm shocked it never got made. I think he's a real good writer, man.
No, he's great. It's kind of weird that this is so not much of anything.
Yeah, like I was expecting a little bit more.
I don't think this episode's bad, right?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think the script is the problem here. I think the script is the makeup and clearly Martin Sheen.
I don't dislike Martin Sheen.
And I don't have a problem with Martin Sheen as an actor. I like Martin Sheen as an actor. It's just like
He's got one of those great voices, right? I mean, Martin Sheen has a great voice.
Oh my God. Yeah, and it's instantly recognizable no matter what makeup you're slathering him in. So, seems like he was not differentiating his characters enough, and the makeup was doing him no favors.
I think he differentiated the characters enough. I think it's just, I can't get over the fact that I know it's Martin Sheen, and it's clearly Martin Sheen, and how does this character of Billy Zane not realize that?
Yeah, man.
Because he would have seen him 3 times now.
Right.
Because he saw him as the original character that he murdered, and then he saw him as the other 2 characters and didn't say to himself, that's not the same guy I've killed twice now.
Yeah, rather unusual. I did like the effect of when he turns from the secondary character into the final character, where he's just spinning around with his cape, and it slowly becomes the new character. I thought that was kind of a neat effect as far as in-camera transformations go. There's a lot to like in the episode. I just think like the entire thing is predicated on the twist, and if you can't hide that twist till the end, then there's really no point in watching it.
Yeah, because there's no way as an audience member you would not have picked up on the fact that is Martin Sheen.
Yeah, man. At the time when it aired, I was like, okay, here's Martin Sheen. There's Martin Sheen. Okay, well, here he is again. So, not the most clever episode. I mean, as a script, I think it is pretty good. But even that, like, having a character, then be introduced to a second character, then introduced to the third character, like, it's clumsy as far as a whodunit goes, or an episode, as we've said, predicated on the twist. Like, if you're gonna go that route, then you need to fool us from the beginning. We actually need to be surprised by the end. And it seems to me like they could have just fucking had another character and had another actor playing the different roles, and we would have bought it.
And also the box of death illusion that they're showing is not interesting.
Not really, no. Very modern for what is supposed to be. I don't think this is even the 1920s. It's probably like the 19th century here.
It's like, oh, here comes some swords and a thing of acid. Like, okay.
Yeah, and like the acid is there because it was in the original comic.
Right, exactly. The acid also feels completely like ham-fisted.
Yeah, just superfluous. Like, we need this in here. More dramatic effect? I don't know.
Or a callback to the original story.
Yeah, the original comic book, sure. But, yeah, it doesn't service anything. And we're dealing with, in this case, Andrew Kevin Walker chose to take it away from acting and try to focus on the prestidigitators of the world. So you can fool us in any number of ways. Like, the only time I was a little off kilter watching it was the Billy Zane character actually being stabbed and acid dropped on him or not, because, I thought maybe we're getting a twist where he knows that he's being fooled and now he's fooling the other guy. Like, that to me could have been more interesting, where like this guy has this revenge plot that he's put into motion, but Billy Zane has seen through it and now is turning the tables. But we didn't get that. It's just a very linear plot line here where we know from the get-go that it's Martin Sheen back to get some sort of revenge on this guy.
I think that would have been a much more interesting episode if they had gone that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do illusionists, like, let's have some illusions going on where the audience really is unaware of what's transpiring in front of them.
Yeah, it feels more of a missed opportunity than anything else. I don't think it's not terrible.
No.
I mean, it's not, but it's also not, it's not as good of an episode as it could have been. given the folks that are in it, especially Martin Sheen.
If this were a season 3 or 4 episode, I'd probably recommend it. But so far, they've been hitting on all cylinders this season, so it kind of pales by comparison in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a skip, but only a light skip.
Light skip, just like our previous episode. Not the worst. You're not gonna hate yourself watching this. You're not gonna be screaming at the television while watching it, but not up to snuff.
No, not considering how season 5 has been so good so far. However, speaking about that, the next... Oh, dear. Yeah. The next 2 episodes we're going to be talking about are episode 9 and 10 of season 5, Creep Course and Came the Dawn. And Came the Dawn, I don't remember Creep Course, but Came the Dawn, boy.
Refresh my memory.
I believe Came the Dawn has something to do with a man dressing like a woman.
Oh, how unfortunate.
Yeah, if memory serves, that's what it is. And again, that is unfortunate for a number of reasons. Namely, it's not in great taste, among other things. So, but until then, where can people find you, Father Malone?
Hey, check me out over on my YouTube channel, Ot5 Films. Check out my series You've Never Seen about movies that need a little bit more love than they initially received. You can hear me over on Dreams for Sale, the Twilight Zone 85 podcast, where we talk about the reboot of the Twilight Zone from 1985, weirdly enough. You can also hear me occasionally over on CultureCast, and I think by now, by the time you're listening to this particular episode, I have a new podcast called Dark Destinations, a pure fictional podcast about different characters visiting fictional horror locations around the globe. So check me out over on there as well.
As for myself, follow me on Twitter, Casualty_Chris. That's where you can find me. I talk about all the stuff that I'm on. My newest project is Scary Stories We Tell, a true crime, supernatural, paranormal podcast where we talk about all manner of things happening in the world that fit into those boxes. It is a complete change from something like this, but if you're into true crime or the paranormal, please check that one out. I have a couple other podcasts, but I pump all of those pretty hard on Twitter, so go over there. You can follow us on Twitter at ChroniclesFTC. Big thanks, as always, to Mr. John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, for doing the intro to this podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.